I sneaked into Jeffrey Epstein's mind by reading through all the information released on him, and especially the thousands of emails sent from or to him. You see, there are terabytes of information available on Epstein at this point. Testimonies directly from Jeffrey Epstein, from Maxwell, from the victims, photos, videos, contact list, and now emails. But despite this, how many people who seem too obviously connected to Epstein in all the wrong ways have actually faced any conviction? And I don't think any new information coming out of this scandal would be obsolete enough to convict any new criminal. To actually meaningfully use this information, we need to go deeper and search through the scraps, the mundane, and not look for anyone else but Jeffrey Epstein himself. We need to find out whether, ever since his first jail sentence, since he became a convicted pedo in the late 2000s, did he show any remorse? Was he scared that his past might come back to bite him? Was he scared to repeat his actions, or was he on it again? And if he was, who was with him? Whom did Epstein consider his friend? Whom did Epstein want as his friend? Whom was Epstein scared to talk to? What exactly was going on in the mind of Epstein? Reading into the web of Epstein files through this lens can shed light on a lot of unanswered questions. Recently, a cool tool was launched by a bunch of developers, where they clone the email interface into a Gmail, where you're logged into email but through Epstein's account, where you can read all the emails received and sent by Epstein. I have read a huge chunk of these emails and used this tool to gather the most important people in these emails, the most important emails, the date and timing of those emails, and map them to the important information we have on Epstein outside of these emails and try to get into the psyche of Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was a wealthy socialite for decades, so there are many important people in this group, but they can be categorized into a few distinct groups: businessmen, celebrities, scientists, politicians, friends, journalists, lawyers, etc. Starting with the love of his life, Ghislaine Maxwell. The time is the late 2000s, April 2009 to be exact. Epstein, probably chilling in his Florida mansion, receives an email on a Sunday evening from Ghislaine. The subject goes, "As Obama says, we've got problems." Remember that in April 2009, Obama was only a 3-month-old president, so he was extremely new and trendy. Similarly, the body of the mail itself is a trendy forwarded message. It goes, "We are in trouble. The population of this America is 300 million, 160 million are retired. That leaves 140 million to do the work. There are 85 million in school, which leaves 55 million to do the work. Of this, there are 35 million employed by the federal government, leaving 20 million to do the work. 2.8 million are in the armed forces, preoccupied with killing Osama bin Laden, which leaves 17.2 million to do the work. Take from that total the 15.8 million people who work for state and city governments, and that leaves 1.4 million to do the work. At any given time, there are 188,000 people in hospitals, leaving 1,212,000 to do the work. Now, there are 1,211,998 people in prisons. That leaves just 2 people to do the work, you and me. And there you are, sitting on your chair, at your computer, reading jokes. Nice. Real nice.
Are you kidding?
It was a joke. 2009, Sunday evening, sitting on a chair and reading jokes sent by Maxwell. Oh, what a great life. Until it isn't. Epstein was taken into custody in June 2008 and sentenced to 18 months in prison, but that was later shortened to 13 months, which means he was released in July 2009. Which means he should have been in jail in April 2009 when Maxwell emailed him this joke. Yet he was able to read it on his own computer. Also, who sends jokes and emails to someone who's recently been taken into jail? It just strengthens the point that the deal made with Alexander Acosta was always favorable to Epstein, and he wasn't the least bit worried about anything. Either he was constantly out during his jail period, or he had access to a computer in his cell. Both possibilities seem likely. As we move ahead in Epstein's life, the carefreeness is even more apparent. It's September 2009, and now Epstein is no longer in jail. Early at 6 a.m., Epstein mails Maxwell to casually ask and mention that he loved her Bono Mick story. Bono is probably the lead singer of the Irish band U2, and Mike is probably Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones. Maxwell probably met them at some crazy party, and something crazy happened. It's okay. This is who they are. Filthy rich, meeting filthy rich people. Stories like these are just normal chatter for Epstein and Maxwell. This whole conversation between them is a great example of that. The same day in the afternoon, Maxwell mails Epstein, telling him she is in California, and there is an old friend of his there who lives in Paris and manages a hedge fund. Epstein quickly recognizes her, and that same day, late at night, mails again to Maxwell, casually mentioning that the picture in his kitchen shows him, some Ted and Clinton. How funny. Remember, this is all happening while Epstein is freshly out of jail. The mention of a friend who manages a hedge fund, the mention of a story with some of the biggest musicians, the mention of a random picture in the kitchen with the former president of the United States of America, all of this is mentioned in the most casual tone possible. None of this is a big deal for Epstein or Maxwell. However, the casual tone slowly shifts to a more serious and scared one over time. Epstein officially became a level 3 sex offender in January 2011, and in March, the Daily Mail published the now infamous picture of Prince Andrew with one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffre. Suddenly, Epstein was in the spotlight of the British media, and his emails showed that. In the morning of March 4th, 2011, Epstein received a forwarded email from Maxwell's lawyer about an article where the publisher wanted to ask a list of questions, all related to Virginia Giuffre's allegations. This was the new norm now. Epstein was talking to Maxwell only through his lawyers, and so was she. But this norm was broken once, when Epstein, on a Saturday afternoon in April 2011, emailed Maxwell just to say, "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Virginia spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned." After 2011, Epstein and Maxwell completely stopped exchanging emails. With the rising publicity of Epstein for all the wrong reasons, Maxwell had started to distance herself. She even met her now husband in 2013, so more probably than not, her relationship with Epstein had ended by then, till 2015, when email exchanges started again. Till 2015, media coverage mostly focused on Epstein's plea deal and his powerful friends, helping Maxwell keep a low profile. But in 2015, Virginia Giuffre and more victims directly named Maxwell in civil lawsuits, dragging her into the limelight. And after 4 years of no contact, Ghislaine mails Epstein. It was an article by the Daily Mail accusing Ghislaine of attending some weird parties with Prince Andrew. She sent this article to show that she can't remain silent any longer. It was not just her opinion, but a direct instruction from her lawyers that the press would keep taking her name. And if she didn't make any statements, her image would only falter further. For the next few days of January and February, both Epstein and Maxwell kept contacting each other via their lawyers to create a joint cohesive narrative of all the allegations. But that was it. The communication stopped again in 2015 itself. Maxwell kept suggesting that she needs to cooperate with Epstein and fight these cases together, but her lawyers kept refusing to do so. They thought that Epstein was using her. The more the press talks about her, the less the negative spotlight on him. Maxwell was getting irritated by all this, so much so, she emailed about it to her lawyers. But what irks me the most is, Epstein never seemed half as worried about this case as Maxwell was. In his email exchanges with his lawyers, not once does Epstein show any sort of fear or worry, and even a serious tone is maintained, far in between. Reed Weingarten, one of Epstein's main lawyers, casually replies, "Yikes, my boy Jeffrey is everywhere," to an article sent by Jeffrey, where he's being smeared into the Clinton Pizzagate controversy. In other email exchanges from March 2017, Epstein is discussing a completely unrelated case with his lawyer, and their relationship is such that a literal lawyer with all his knowledge of law and how information can be used against him literally swears in the emails on that unrelated case. Then, in April of the same year, Epstein asks his lawyer, "You can hop to my island with your friend if you like." The only times Epstein ever seemed serious with his lawyers were when they were discussing articles written about Epstein, or when reporters reached out to Epstein's lawyers with questions. What's interesting is that Epstein was communicating with journalists much more often than with his lawyers. Epstein has exchanged about 25 emails with his lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, who has been with him since his Florida case in 2008, and most emails are just sending different stories published by big media houses. On the other side, Epstein has exchanged emails with Michael Wolff, a journalist, over 150 times, and with Larry Summers and Steve Bannon, both politicians, more than 80 times. And once again, rarely about his own case, but almost always about Donald Trump. In one exchange with Larry Summers, Epstein, early in the morning in late December 2018, emails Larry, "Trump, borderline insane." This came in the background of Trump announcing a full withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. Epstein then continues, "This is not a new phenomenon for him. In the past, he was told not to come out of his apartment. That's how he got through near personal bankruptcy. His strength is remarkable. He is pounded 24/7. I hope someone close to him gets indicted, but not sure. Otherwise, the pressure of the unknown will force him to do crazy things." The thing about Trump and Epstein's relationship is it was soared right after that 2004 Florida mansion deal. But it reignited when Trump decided to run for president in 2016, and journalists suddenly started to target Epstein with Trump questions. But Epstein never seemed worried here either. He was just curious. One time in December 2015, Michael Wolff emailed Epstein, "I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards." And Epstein simply replies, "If we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be?" To which Wolff suggests, "I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or, if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt." Both Maxwell and Epstein had admitted in various interviews that Epstein did have material on powerful people, including Donald Trump. It seems Epstein simply never cared, not even while talking to his lawyers discussing his case, nor with the journalists and politicians talking about his enemy, who became the most powerful man on the planet. We should remember that all these nonchalant emails by Epstein were in the midst of many ongoing cases against him, and somehow still find time to talk to various scientists about the most absurd ideas and donate to their research. One time in August 2015, he asked Noam Chomsky if biological thinking could use the mathematical model of constantly trying again and again to find the best solution as the best growth strategy for a child, then quickly switching the question to, "Have you written about the Iran deal?" The more you look into Epstein's history and his records, from interviews to emails and everything in between, the more you know that Epstein was a man who knew who he was, what he wanted, and what his capacity was. He never seemed to be someone who feared the unknown and was always in control of himself, unlike Maxwell, who seemed scared from the very beginning. Yet, she is the one who is alive, and not Epstein. As I said earlier, the names that were in these emails were the names we already knew, and the names that we would see in any upcoming files would be the same as well. But digging more and more into these Epstein files, simply focusing on Epstein, suggests one thing 100%. Epstein could not have killed himself. He simply wasn't that guy.